Venezuela has sworn in an interim leader after U.S. forces captured the country's president, Nicolas Maduro, and brought him to the United States. Delcy Rodriguez, who served as Nicolas Maduro's vice president, has been sworn in as the country's interim president in the capital city, Caracas. Venezuelan Supreme Court ruled that Rodriguez would assume the role of acting president following the capture of Maduro. During the televised event, Rodriguez told Venezuelans that she came with sorrow to be sworn in, saying in part that the sorrow was, quote, for the kidnapping of two colleagues in the United States of America, President Nicolas Maduro and the First Lady of the country, Celia Flores. Maduro and his wife faced a judge for the first time today in New York, both pleading not guilty to weapons and drug charges after entering their pleas. They were transported back to a Brooklyn jail. During the hearing, Maduro told the courtroom he remains the president of Venezuela and said he was kidnapped in the weekend military raid in Caracas. After the military raid in Venezuela on Saturday, Senator Collins commented that Maduro was a ruthless dictator and an illegitimate ruler. Today, Collins told our Phil Hirschkorn that she agrees with seizing him based on the federal charges against him for narco-terrorism and drug trafficking. But Collins said the Trump administration should have briefed Senate leaders and leaders of the armed services and intelligence committees in advance. Meanwhile, one of the Democratic candidates for her Senate seat this year, Governor Janet Mills, is challenging Collins to exercise greater oversight on Venezuela. Mills tells us Collins should hold a public hearing on the raid and use her leverage as Appropriations Committee chair.
I'm calling on her to put a hold on all defense and Secretary of State nominations, appointments, until Congress can obtain clear answers that might possibly justify the administration's military action in this other country and their announced intention to run the country of Venezuela.
What the governor apparently doesn't understand is there's a lot of very sensitive classified information on how we knew exactly where Maduro was, and it would not be appropriate for that to come out at a public hearing. So, and then as far as putting a block on nominees, I don't see how there is a connection between a nominee for ambassador to some country in Asia, say, and this operation.
Collins went on to tell Phil she does not agree with the idea, promoted by President Trump, that the United States should run Venezuela. She said Venezuelans need to run Venezuela, including opposition leader Maria Corina Machado, who just won the Nobel Peace Prize. Collins also said she does not want to see long-term military action there or in other countries in our hemisphere that President Trump has mentioned, like Colombia or Greenland. Senator Angus King also weighed in on the situation. He said members of Congress have a lot of questions about the operation that unfolded and the motivation behind it.
The argument that the administration is making, well, they're making lots of arguments, but the one is this was a law enforcement action. Basically, the military helped us arrest a bad guy. That argument stood up for about 10 minutes in the president's press conference on Saturday when he then said, but we're going to run Venezuela.
Senator King said a briefing for all U.S. senators is expected to happen Wednesday. Tonight, the Trump administration officials briefed top congressional lawmakers on Capitol Hill. House and Senate members, known as the Gang of Eight, received their first closed-door briefing about the military mission in Venezuela. Following the briefing, some members of the Gang of Eight spoke to the media.
I did not receive any assurances that we would not try to do the same thing in other countries. And in conclusion, when the United States engages in this kind of regime change and so-called nation building, it always ends up hurting the United States. I left the briefing feeling that it would again.
The way that this is being described, I think, is accurate. This is not a regime change. This is a demand for change of behavior by a regime.
The briefing also included ranking members of intelligence committees from the House and the Senate.